Perceptions of parental violence. Hello. Welcome to the Digitized Education of Parents for Children Protection training module. My name is Vehbi Onur Demirciler and I'm one of the researchers of this project. In this video, the concept of violence will be explained, and then the factors affecting the parents' perceptions of violence will be stated, and finally, how the types of violence are perceived by the parents will be discussed. Perceptions of parental violence. Violence is an important social problem that can be seen in all areas of human life and is increasing in the world. World Health Organization defines violence as the intentional use of physical force or force in the form of injuring, death, psychological harm, deprivation against oneself, another person, or against a group or community. Any intervention that hurts the emotional and physical integrity of the person is violence. Violence can occur in the form of physical, sexual, psychological, or deprivation due to different reasons at the self-directed, interpersonal, or community levels. When the study is conducted all over the world, it is one of the most important social problems in the world, and it is experienced in every family regardless of economic and educational levels. One of the biggest factors in the emergence of violence as a problem is how it is perceived. At this point, the concept of perception of violence emerges. Perception is about how experienced events are interpreted and made sense of. It's a cognitive process created by the phenomena existing in the external world. In the formation of the perception of violence, social culture, acquired behaviors, cultural factors, living conditions, and whether the individual is exposed to violence or not are effective. Let's examine how parents interpret and make sense of violence, considering the types of violence. Perception of physical violence. Some parents have adopted physical violence as an education method to make their children obey, teach moral rules, and maintain domestic order. These parents think that they have the right to beat their children under these circumstances of misbehavior. Some parents, on the other hand, use physical violence with a very low awareness without even knowing that what physical violence is. Although it is known that families with low socioeconomic status use this method intensively, it can also be seen in families with high socioeconomic level. For example, according to the definitions of parents, children are exposed to physical violence for reasons such as undesirable movements of the child at home, sibling quarrels, insistence like stubbornness or opposition to get what they want, disobedience, disrespecting their elders, reluctance to go to school and to do homework. The most common physical violence behaviors are seen as slapping, pulling ears, squeezing one's arm or leg, pulling hair, pushing, throwing objects. Parents perceive all these behaviors as what needs to be done for the well-being of children, to give them the right behavior and to maintain order. Some parents do not perceive it as violence, but interpret it as a punishment and use it as an education method. Some families, on the other hand, act completely unconsciously, with low awareness and without child-oriented thinking, while transferring the behaviors they bring from their own cultural structures to their children. Emotional, psychological violence. Some families do not perceive emotional, psychological violence as violence, because perception of violence consists of physical violence, and they inflict violence on their children in this direction. Emotional violence type can be seen in all kinds of family structures with low socioeconomic level, medium, and high. For example, in the face of undesirable behaviors, gaining the right behavior, sibling conflicts, school and lesson problems push parents to apply emotional violence. This behavior includes yelling, getting angry, offended, mocking, insulting, humiliating, intimidating, ignoring, not caring, depriving, not meeting their needs, reducing love, and not respecting, and more. These can be seen in such forms. These behaviors are defined by the parents as: if you do, I won't be your mother. You will be a bad boy. Nobody will love you. They will kidnap you. If you don't, you can't go to the park. You can't eat chocolate. I don't love you. I can't mess with you, and more. With such words, the parents apply this violence. In addition, facial expressions and gestures that make the child feel bad also cause the child to be exposed to emotional violence. Some parents do not perceive these words, behaviors, and facial expressions as violence, and they think that it is the right method to manage the child. They are not aware of the negative emotional and psychological effects that may occur on the child. Economic violence. We can examine the parents who use economic violence in two groups. The first group is the families with good economic status. These families use economic violence by depriving their children of their financial means. These families do not perceive this as violence, but use it as an educational tool in order to teach their children about the difficulties of life, that money is not easily earned, that its value should be known. The other part is the parents who are in financial difficulties and have very low awareness. These parents employ their children to support the household economy and do not perceive this as violence.
Perception of sexual violence. We can examine the parents who practice sexual violence in two groups. The first group is sexual offenses directly perpetrated by the parents against their child. These parents are mentally, psychologically problematic. They are not at the levels of consciousness where a perception can be mentioned. There are no facts of a real sense of social and moral value. The other group does not directly commit sexual violence against their children, but they remain unconscious and insufficient to prevent factors that may cause children to be exposed to external factors and sexual violence. Here it is quite important for parents to have information about privacy education. The lack of sufficient information about parental privacy education will make the child open to situations that may cause him or her to be sexually abused by himself, herself, or by external factors. Privacy education is to respect and not harm the child's private areas, physical body, mental aura, and emotional aura, and to manage its development correctly. These areas should be respected. Unauthorized interventions should not be made, and negative behaviors that would hinder development should not be made. For example, if the parent is not conscious of the physical aura, they can dispose of child's body without permission, kissing without permission, changing clothes without permission, entering the room without permission, not paying attention to the privacy of the child and himself, herself. These behaviors prevent the formation of a sense of privacy in the child and may cause him or her to normalize it in a way that he or she cannot react to physical contacts and unwanted interventions from outside. Another example: if parents who do not have the knowledge of privacy education experience their privacy in a way that the child can see or hear, the child will be abused in the face of this situation where he or she is not ready cognitively and emotionally. In this case, the child may be traumatized, psychologically affected negatively, and may experience sexual problems in later life. However, parents are not aware of the importance of the problems that this situation may cause in the child. Another important and overlooked type of violence is that the child discovers a sexual feeling, a feeling that he or she is not yet ready for developmentally, through television, the internet, social media, and is thus exposed to sexual violence. Sexual emotion-related scenes in a series of scenes, videos, and photos circulating on social media harm children who should not yet recognize sexual emotions as of the developmental period, and in this way, the child may be subjected to violence. However, parents do not perceive this as a violence because they are not aware of the emotional structure of the child, because they act with their own emotions and thought structure. Perception of cyberviolence. Cyberviolence is a problem that has emerged with the development and spread of the internet and technological tools. Parents' uncontrolled and unconscious exposure of their children to these tools can cause development disruption, behavior problems, cognitive, psychological, and sexual problems on the child. For example, some parents expose their children to an uncontrolled content environment to be able to do their daily work, to avoid dealing with the child, to feed the child, to silence the crying of the child. However, many parents do not know how to avoid the negative effects of technology in their lives, how to control it, and how to use it effectively and beneficially. Parents do not perceive cyberviolence as violence that the child is exposed to. Thank you very much for your attention. Hope to meet in the next module.